had this idea about this like these two people that are married, and this has kind of been done before, but I think it's interesting. I was listening to a John Cassavetes interview about the film Opening Night, and he's talking about the play within. He basically wrote a fake play to make this movie, and he's talking about the dynamics of like the play can't be good, but he's like, how do you write a bad play and not have it feel like it's within the character's mind, it's obviously not a bad play,
right?
And she's a very experienced whatever, so how do you write? And I thought that was interesting. So, but then what came from that was this idea about these two people, both married and in like, long-term relationships, and then they fall in love on stage, and like beyond love, like there's like a lust connection,
the whole bag,
and they can only kind of, I guess, explore that when they're on stage together. And like, what would that be like? I feel like there's an interesting thing there for a film, if you can actually keep it. Like somehow there's a barrier that breaks loose when you're supposed to. Because there's interesting material there just in terms of the metaphor of performance art, and finding a character within yourself and things like that. But then there's also, I just think that's an interesting dynamic of like,
I do too.
You've got to cage yourself off because this is not acceptable in the outside world, but for some reason when you're inside of that, then it's totally acceptable.
Yeah.
And there's no difference. It's just.
But then also,
but when you're in front of an audience of people, it becomes acceptable to lust after another person.
Right.
And this, I think I don't know. That's something I'm like, that almost is just a scenario that I'd like to play out. Like you get enough backstory to give two skilled enough actors enough of a grasp on those characters, and then see how that plays out, and then just put a camera and kind of follow that interaction.
Yep.
And then take it off of the stage and see how the repression looks. And that's interesting. That's the first time I've said it out loud. I literally thought about this last night. I was like, I wrote it in my phone. I'm like,
good.
What do you think about that? Like you have acting experience, like on stage.
Yeah, I've never had a role where there was a romantic element with another character, but I've thought about that a few times. Like I did a little short film when I was at Florida State, and I was like the guy that the main character was into and had a crush on. And that idea of, well, what if the director wants a scene where we kiss or something like that, like how do I communicate that to Aaron? We weren't married at the time. Not that you have to be married to have that be okay or forbidden, but I'm like, and so when you mentioned your idea, I just sit there and go, it's this very odd place where your profession and your art sort of allow you to be intimate with another person. And sometimes I imagine it's full performance, it's clinical, there's no romance, there's no whatever, and you have to act.
Yeah,
but I'm sure, and obviously plenty of times actors and actresses have felt the spark and whatever, and had an affair or left their significant other to be with that person. I'm sure I know that stuff happens all the time.
100%. But what happens if you both have a strong enough idea of the boundary?
Yeah.
Or just enough of a grasp on that level of the forbidden.
There was that moment where a spouse sees it happening on stage, even though they're not physically touching each other, but sees that it's there.
There's a charisma or a chemistry between,
and it's not like some Orson Welles obscure movie, but it's The Greatest Showman with Hugh Jackman and Michelle Williams.
Great movie.
And the actress, I do like it, but the actress that he's on stage with, when he's looking at her singing that huge song, and Michelle Williams just it dawns on her, oh no.
Yeah.
But at the same time,
I feel like there's
something about the me in that situation trying to rationalize to my significant other, my wife, I personally want to see this person again on stage. I want to explore the lust. I want to explore the love. I can feel it happening, and I sort of have permission without hurting my wife because it's for the art or profession. When
This
I
is
know,
my job.
When I know full well that
right.
That
was the interesting dynamic for me, is if both of these people are like you want this exploration. You want to see what this is like. You want, like, you see a new world,
right,
that you can explore.
Well, and you probably
without consequences, like a completely forbidden world that you're allowed to explore without consequences, but it's in this finite, and there's still consequences, like you said. You have a significant other,
right?
So yeah, what does that look like? What if we played that out in a 20-minute short film and just explored that dynamic? Could we, one, capture that, like, just intensity of emotion and lust and
there was like elements of that. This wasn't from the same situation, but I as you speak about this, I keep remembering some of those scenes from the Jessica Chastain and Oscar Isaac version of Scenes from a Marriage, especially when she was seeing her boss at the startup or whatever, and they were talking through like all of that.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was like painful yet fascinating to watch, to see them, what felt like very real and truthful dialogue and dynamics, and the questions that the one had and the pain they felt and all of that stuff. So also A Marriage Story comes to mind as well. These long scenes with dialogue of them hashing out all their conflict and their issues and all that stuff. And your idea lends itself to something like that as well.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting dynamic that I feel like some movies have just sort of like touched on it. Like Greatest Showman, it's like an element in the story, but like making it the story is interesting.
It had been a golden afternoon, and I remember having the familiar conviction that life was beginning over again with the summer and summer.